According to Webster's, the definition of resistance is pretty straightforward. A refusal to accept or comply with something. It happens all the time. Children resist bedtime. Adults resist change. In Donald Trump's case, the resistance can be described as a movement of biblical proportions.
They've been plotting to overthrow the election since the first hour that we won.
Wall Street Journal columnist Kimberly Strassel seeks to explain who the they is in the book called Resistance at All Cost, How Trump Haters Are Breaking America.
These were the folks who, from the very moment Donald Trump was elected, they viewed him as illegitimate and occupying that office, and that they were therefore, in extension, allowed to take any actions they wanted to get rid of him.
Strassel argues that criticism of the president is one thing, but blind rage that crosses barriers and undermines our institutions is a whole other level.
The very beginning of the resistance, and one of the first examples of what I call undiagnosed Trump derangement syndrome, is Jim Comey.
And Strassel thinks Comey's multiple sneaky moves are at the top of the resistance list, like taking private notes while meeting with Trump and then leaking them to get a special counsel appointed in the Russian investigation.
It is still astonishing to me that we are saying out loud that the FBI launched a counterintelligence investigation into a presidential campaign. I mean, this is beyond all reasonable things you do.
And as Strassel points out, reasonable and resistance don't usually go hand in hand. Look at the judiciary, for example. One by one, a judge somewhere in America can impose his or her view on the entire country by proclaiming a nationwide injunction time after time against Trump policies.
There's a presumption that the executive branch gets the kind of benefit of the doubt when it comes out that they're ignoring all of this stuff just because they can't stand the guy. And so, but it's doing damage to our judicial system.
Although they often claim it is the president doing the damage.
The institutions of our government are under assault because of this president, and he could do some damage.
He's eroding our democracy.
I do think he is a bit norm-breaking, but if you step back and you look objectively, it tends to be mostly in his speech, in his rhetoric, in his tweets, and in his demeanor in office. It's harder to make the case that that in any way affects his departments or his policy, or, in fact, I think if you step back, this has been one of the more rule-bound administrations that we have had in a very long time.
Lines like that will send the Trump haters into an angry meltdown. They see Trump as the one breaking rules and now want him impeached. What are you hearing out there and kind of in real America, if you will?
Anger. And it is anger. You know, we talk about the anger of the resistance, but there is real, serious anger among average Americans about what they see happening, the lack of due process, the constant accusations of criminal activity.
Strassel says we've seen this behavior before.
And I hope that the American people will see through this charade.
She sees the Brett Kavanaugh hearings as all part of the resistance effort.
There's a lot of examples of that. Impeachment as a partisan political tool, you know, the degradation of the Senate confirmation process, the lack of trust we have in the DOJ and the FBI. If we don't start calling out some of this behavior and holding people accountable right now, it will only get worse regardless of whether Donald Trump is president or not.
It's not just one party either. The resistance has come from what some describe as the deep state, and also within the walls of the White House.
People will justify this and say, well, you must follow your moral conscience. No, your job is, in fact, to do your job. The president was elected to institute policies.
They often get help from a complicit media, writing damaging headlines while hiding behind generic and anonymous sourcing regarding vital and sensitive national security information.
When you have people out there saying a U.S. government official, they are purposely attempting to cloak that they have been talking to a partisan, but they don't want you to know that they're talking to a partisan. It's bad behavior.
It all begs one final question. While these resistance haters call Trump bad for America, what have their actions possibly done to cause our country major harm?
They need to understand that they have so convinced themselves that he's doing all this damage, and it's that terrible human failing we all have, right? Where often the things we accuse other people of doing are the things we are doing ourselves.
David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
recently, the strongest sanctions in the history.